In this video, we're going to go through a simple routine that you can do regularly if you're someone who has issues with overpronation. Now, it's important to note that pronation is a very natural, healthy, and important movement of the foot. It actually helps us absorb forces from the ground while we walk, run, and jump, and so on. So we don't want to completely avoid pronation. However, we do want the ability to control the movement and also to effectively move in the opposite direction, which is known as supination. And these are the abilities that this routine will be helping you improve on. So let's get stuck into it. All right, first up, we're starting with hip control. So the position and activation of our hips can play a major role on the position and movement of our feet. So to demonstrate that and to build awareness of this, standing hip width apart, you're just going to be rotating your hips internally, which you'll see as your knees coming closer together like that. And you'll see that the position of your foot, the arch flattens and goes into more of that pronation movement. Now, when I reverse that direction, so knees coming away from each other, which is hip external rotation, then the arch should lift, especially if you're keeping the base of the big toe and all of your toes down on the ground without lifting up like that. You should get this supination movement where the arch is lifting. So we're just spending a minute playing with that rotation and seeing how far can you push the knees out while keeping your full foot on the ground. So especially you want that big toe, the base of the big toe pressing into the ground as you rotate your knees out. So this is partly an awareness drill. It will build some control as well as you get used to that movement and as you build the coordination. And from there, for the second minute, you can also add in a little bit of extra foot activation by doing this sort of short foot or doming, foot doming, which is really just trying to pull these 2 points together. So the big toe is pressing into the ground and then is pulling towards the heel and then relaxing. So you're combining the knee out, hip external rotation for the hip control, and then just integrating a little bit of intrinsic foot muscle activation by tensing or squeezing those muscles. Aim for about 5-second hold or 3 to 5 second hold at first. Relax, hold, relax. And you're aiming for this sort of, it can feel a bit crampy, but certainly you'll know when you're activating because you'll feel those muscles working. And it can be quite uncomfortable at first, especially if you're not used to working those muscles. So be gentle on yourself, but explore that exercise in total for 2 minutes before moving on to the next one. Okay, next up we're going to be working on our toe splay, and that's important because a wider toe splay plays a big role in making a more stable foot. So if the toes are narrowed like that, you will tend to pronate more and with less control, whereas if the toes are wide and splayed as they are naturally, or as they should be naturally, then you have more control and stability of that pronation movement. So lifting up, we're going for toe piano, lifting up all our toes off the ground. And then we are trying to splay them out as wide as we can actively. So toe piano is actually trying to do that individually, placing each toe down onto the ground like that, and you end up with your widest active toe splay. But even if you're just lifting up and doing your best to splay out as much as you can, that is still a good practice. It doesn't have to be all individually, but over time you can try and build up to that ability to individually place each toe down like so. And again, you'll notice that as you lift your toes up like this, that will essentially tension the plantar fascia, which helps you move into supination, and that's exactly how this works during gait as well. As we walk, we pronate, and then our big toes extend, which helps us supinate in the opposite direction. So even just lifting the toes up like that is a great way to lift up your arch, and then placing them down slowly while you're maintaining that arch position is a great way to build up control and coordination. So this will, again, it can feel a bit crampy and uncomfortable as you're working through this, so take a rest whenever you need to, but the idea is you'll build up to working on this pattern or this movement and exercise for 2 minutes total before moving on. Okay, next up we're working on some rotating taps, and this is where we're integrating what we've just done with the hip control and the toe splay. So lifting up your toes, placing them down slowly, bringing the knee out, and then you're coming onto that one leg and you're just rotating to tap forward, essentially forward and backward to start. So the range of motion is up to you. If your balance is not so crash hot, it might just be really small taps like this. And then over time, you try and build up to tapping further and further along this sort of imaginary circle. You can kind of see the circle I'm tracing, especially because of the mat here. But at home, just this imaginary circle that you're working around. And you'll notice that the tendency, especially as you come behind yourself, the tendency will be to move the knee in and to sort of go into that flattened pronated position. So again, that's not a bad position, but this exercise is helping you avoid that, or the aim is to try and rotate the body around the leg while avoiding or minimizing how much of that you get. So keeping the knee out and only rotate as far as you can while you maintain that position. So obviously resting as you go, as you need to, but 1 minute on one side and then 1 minute on the other side. So again, toes up, slowly down, maintain that supinated position, bring the knee out a little bit, full foot is on the ground, and then rotating to tap. Start very small. You might build up that range of motion more over a period of weeks. Doesn't have to be in the session, but obviously the aim is to tap further and further around while maintaining the alignment as best you can and the activation in the hips. Also maintaining that toe down, especially that big toe driving down into the ground. Again, can be quite awkward, feels maybe a bit uncoordinated, uncomfortable at first, but just do your best with it. Restrict the range as much as you need to, and rest as much as you need to. You might be doing 5-10 seconds at a time, resting, starting again, building up to the ability to do the full 2 minutes, 1 minute on each side before moving on. Next up, we're working on a rotating calf raise. So most people are familiar with a classic calf raise up and down like that. I'd recommend using a dowel, broomstick, or a wall for balance here, because we're not focusing on this as a balance challenge, just as a strength and control challenge. So the traditional or normal conventional calf raise up and down, that's great, but we want to activate our sort of more supination pattern and get those muscles firing up by coming up and actually squeezing, like twisting or squeezing our heels together. So from here, and then you're just trying to push your heels together without actually obviously rotating your foot on the ground. So your feet maintain their position, and then your heels are just trying to move towards each other. Obviously it doesn't matter if they don't touch. Rotating, and then you can even lower down in that position, come up in that position, go back to your straight, sort of neutral position, and then again. You can even come to neutral and then go more in the opposite direction to sort of feel the opposite of that, and that is as you can see, that's more what you're used to doing as someone who tends to overpronate. But obviously it's fine to do that movement, but you want to build the ability to do the opposite. So again, up, squeeze in, lower down, come up, back to neutral, go more everted or pronated and down, and then reverse. So it's really, again, this is quite an explorative kind of exercise. You don't have to worry about sets and reps too much. Generally, slow and controlled is going to be best. The more balanced you are, the better. So even a broomstick might not be enough balance. Often a wall is really the best place to do this. But either way, just squeezing as much as you can into that supinated position. And exploring both going up and going down and going in all directions like that. So with this, you'll feel your feet working naturally, your calves, and also likely some of these muscles on the either side of your shin. And as with all of these, you can take a break when you need to, but working towards the ability to do this for 2 minutes straight over time. Once you've done your 2 minutes, you can move on. Okay, and last up, we're doing rotating tib raises, which is basically the same thing, but now we're doing it lifting up our toes instead of lifting up our heels. So toes up as far as you can, and then rotating to touch down our pinky toes, and then lifting back up, rotating to touch down our big toes. So it's quite a subtle movement here, and again, you might just have to do your best. It might not be perfect at first, and it might feel uncomfortable, uncoordinated, all of that. That's fine, just do your best and aim for at least have the intent to touch down with the big toes and then touch down with the pinky toes. So really, this is just working this more global ankle position of inversion and eversion, which are heavily tied to pronation and supination. And then it is also working tibialis muscles, which can play a role in the control of pronation. So down, lifting up, down, lifting up. Try and lift up as high as you can in between each repetition. And you can have a break whenever you need to, shake it off. You can track how long you're working for, how often you're taking breaks, and as with all of this, you want to build to the ability to explore that movement for 2 minutes straight, but listen to your body along the way, and remember that this process can take weeks, months, etc. So once you've done 2 minutes at whatever level you're working out there with however much rest, then your routine is wrapped up. All right, so that routine can feel like a lot of work. Your feet and ankles and legs should feel quite warm and activated. If it was very crampy and uncomfortable for you, then we do have a 5-minute crampy feet routine that would be a perfect adjunct to do maybe before this routine or on alternate days to help you unwind that crampiness. So highly recommend going and checking that out. But otherwise, if you're enjoying these videos and getting value out of them, please do like and subscribe. That helps support our channel, and we do put out videos like this every week. And if you're looking for more structured programs and guidance from TFC pros, live calls and so on, then we do have our Explorer membership, which you can find out all the details about in the link through the description below.